the prophecies of Ellen White concerning this date, we need to take serious. And you find so many people within the Adventist church that would just come and say that this date was wrong. The Advent movement was good and everything, but they had this date wrong. And I don't understand how anybody can call themselves an Adventist and ignore this extremely important date. We are talking about restoring Adventism, and as you know, quite a few Adventists have dropped so many of our root beliefs, and I want to touch on one thing today. I want to talk about a most mysterious date in history, a date that is as none other in recent history. I'm going to begin with Robert Chambers. You'll figure out what this date is, but just look at all the things that happened on this specific date. In this year, Robert Chambers published Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation. This work prepared the public for the work of Charles Darwin. Even Darwin believed this to be so. Darwin built upon this foundation. And what did Charles Darwin do? Of course, we know about the whole beginning of the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution, whether you support it or not, this theory has its foundation in this year. Would you consider this event a significant event in history? I would surely think so. Then we look at Charles Darwin. Now we know his book came out quite a bit later, as I have it, 1856. But between 1833 and 1844, this very year, Darwin completed his research, which he began in 1833. He also released his first essay on evolution in this year. So this was his first publication. The first time he introduced the world to his theory of evolution that changed the world forever. Again, would you regard this as a significant date? Yeah. Karl Marx. I don't know, maybe some of you don't know who he is. In this year, Karl Marx meets Friedrich Engels. And it makes a significant change in what he believes and how he thinks in his philosophy. And they became lifelong friends. Friedrich Engels was his biggest influence in his life. In this year, Marx changed his philosophy of economy, and in November of this year, they published their first book, The Holy Family. And this is the birth of communism. So in this year, communism was born. Would you regard this as a significant event? As you can see, these are not small events. Even though fascism was the basis of Roman Catholic rule, it has not been developed as an ideology. The Italian Mazzini, a member of the Illuminati, set the foundation of fascism, especially during this date. This was a significant date for the development of fascism. There was a great scandal in the post office in England that made him extremely prominent in this year. Later, Friedrich Nietzsche, born in this very year, and also a very prominent person, further developed this ideology. Quite interesting that he was born in this very year. It was from these two persons' work that Nazism was born, as well as the rule of Mussolini, the two most prominent figures of the Second World War. It was also Mussolini who gave Papal Rome their rule back in 1929. Both Hitler and Mussolini were fascist leaders. To top it all off, it was built on Darwinism. Again, would you say this is significant? I would surely believe it is. One more thing, the main characteristics of fascism is the merging of state and industry. This is actually typical of fascism, is where the industry, the businesses, the big businesses and government becomes a unity. It is similar to communism, but it is not as much complete nationalism, but rather a co-ownership. We see this happening now with the government and more partnering with industry with this financial crisis. I believe we will see fascism returning soon in the whole world. Then we go back to the Fox sisters. In this year, Maggie and Kate Fox heard rappings in their house, and they believed them to be from the other side. They began performing as spiritual mediums. They were later shown to be fraudulent, but it was the birth of spiritualism and also the birth of what we call today New Age and all these kind of derivatives of it. Would you think that is significant? I would say so. Their first publication was done in 1846. And of course, it also opened the doors for Eastern religions. I mean, generally the Eastern religions were closed to the Western world. They did not really take note of it. But since spiritualism, all of a sudden there was a renewed interest into Hinduism and into Buddhism and all these religions. Then, interestingly, feminism was, of course, not born in this year, but this was a heightened activity of feminism. And if we look at what's happening with all these strange ideologies of LGBTQ, etc., from that time on, all this development just increased and increased. Feminism was also very important for Karl Marx. He emphasized it extremely much because he always looked to see where he can focus on smaller minorities. In this year, Charles Fennerty invented the production of paper from wood pulp. Now, why would that be important? Normally, but what's so important about that? Before this date, paper was made from old clothes, from cotton. It was an expensive commodity. Yes, books were available, but they were expensive. You didn't just quickly go to the store and buy a book or something like a magazine. Newspapers, that was just unheard of. This was too expensive. Paper was really a luxury item, even as late as 1844. Things like distributing billets or tracts, things like that would have been completely impossible before 1844. Just thinking of our message, do you think this is an important event? Making paper cheap and affordable to the masses. But of course, people say, oh, it's just a coincidence. But you know what? When you have so many coincidences, you're starting to wonder what on earth is going on. Samuel Morse, an incredible person, what he did. Just prior to this year, Morse code was developed, and the very first telegram was sent on May 24 of this year with a message, "What has God wrought?" This was the birth of electronic communication. You can even call this the embryo of the internet. Now, I personally think of everything technologically that ever happened in the last 200 years, this was the most significant. People don't have a clue how significant it was. Back then, if you wanted to send somebody, you had to get somebody on a horseback with a message in his hand and drive 100 or 200 kilometers or whatever miles that might be, and go and deliver a message. And to get something to the other side of the world, it would take months for your message to reach. This completely made the world so much smaller, because in an instant, you can send a message across the ocean. Personally, this is the thing that changed the world, communication. And without this development, we would not have anything like the internet today. Do you think that's significant? I would say so. Charles Goodyear. In this year, Charles Goodyear patented the vulcanization of rubber. This had a huge impact on so many fronts. Just try to imagine a world without rubber. We were picking up cups with rubber bands yesterday. Sorry, you won't be able to do that. Rubber did exist before then. Of course, you did get rubber. but the vulcanization made a huge change in the strength and power and durability to rubber. Just try and think how you would be able to have a plain land without rubber. Would you be able to do that? It would be quite a tricky thing to get an aeroplane to land without having tires to get that shock on its system. And building an engine today without the rubber seals, thinking of shock absorbers, there are so many things. Without rubber, it's just a nightmare to even try and conceive to have a modern travel systems going in the world. Again, do you think this is significant? I would say so. Then Swede Gustav Erik Pasch developed the modern match, or as also called the safety match. In this year, before this white phosphorus was used, there were other matches, dry matches, that was also developed, but it was way more dangerous. Even though this might be a small thing to us, it had a huge impact. Many fires were caused by matches that were just lit automatically, or the phosphorus, or some bottle fall over, and then you have a fire. This made a huge impact in making life easier, simpler, just starting a fire for a locomotive, things like that. Everything changed with this small little match that was invented. Then this is less significant, but Joseph Smith of the Mormons, he was murdered in this year by an angry mob, and he was replaced by Young, and it brought a huge change to the direction of that cult. And we know that this cult is one of the fastest growing so-called Christian religions in the world. It is really growing fast, even so. This was not such a significant event, but worth mentioning nonetheless, since the cult is still growing fast. Then the Baha'i faith. Now, this is the one of very few movements that actually acknowledge that this date was important, because this faith started because of this date. The great Baba, they believed him to be a prophet, and they actually derived the whole religion from Daniel 8 verse 14. Many people don't know it, but they are an extremely popular faith, and they are multi-faith religion. And they're especially popular amongst rich people and influential people. So this religion began in that year. The YMCA was started, also not completely insignificant, because the YMCA had a huge impact in the evangelical world. When you capture the youth, you can gain real significant impact in any religion. Then the Codex Sinaiticus, also called the Codex Alexandrinus. In this year, Constantine von Tischendorf discovered what is called the Codex Sinaiticus in the St. Catherine Monastery at the so-called Mount of Sinai Mountain. This biblical manuscript had an unsurmountable influence on modern translations of the Bible, which is still causing a lot of friction in Christian circles. It is from this document that the Jehovah's Witnesses changed the Bible and brought out their Bible. This was the document that they used to do that. This document has caused numerous problems, and most new translation uses this document. It's of course built on the Alexandrian tradition of text and not the Byzantium tradition. There are numerous problems with this text, and the quality of the text is terrible, but what made it significant is its age. It is the oldest, almost complete Bible that you do get, and that is why it was so significant. And of course, the argument is, if something is old, it must be the best. If something is old, it must be the original. which of course is a flawed reason. John Nelson Darby, who of you guys know who he is? I'd say in the Christian world, one of the most significant people in the last 200 years. He was impressed by somebody called Manya Lacunza. Who knows who that is? Very important guy. He died, I think, about 1799. He was a Jesuit. He wrote a book, The Coming of the Messiah in Majesty and Glory, but he wrote it in Spanish. He was from Argentina. The most significant Argentinian writer, according to some historians, and most people don't even know him, not even his own countrymen. What made this so impressive is a man by the name of Edwin Irving in the late 1820s and 1830s. He came across this man's book, and he taught himself Spanish so he could translate this book. And then he began his own whole theology around this book. Eventually, the Church of the Anglican Church fired him and got rid of him. He said his theology is not Christian, and he began his own church, which he called the Apostolic Church, and you even get today churches based on that religion. And he had 12 apostles, which he said these were the last apostles, and he had a prophetess. It's quite interesting that Satan likes to copy things. He had a prophetess called Margaret MacDonald, a 14-year-old girl. And then this guy, John Darby, met this prophetess, and he was so impressed by her and with everything that Edwin Irving taught. And he went back to America, and this was in England, and he shared his faith. And this faith started to grow very slowly because not a lot of people followed him. But during the early 1840s, he developed his theology called dispensationalism. From 1830, but especially during the early 1840s, and by 1844, he was finished with this. He formulated the doctrine of the rapture. You might have heard about that. This is the guy that formulated, and where did he get it? From the Jesuit Manya Lacunza. That's where he got it from. And personally, I believe this man's work is the most influential work in Christianity. And what made it influential? He had a friend called Schofield. And this guy in 1709, with the help of an organization called the Secret Six, who financed him, he published the first Bible with a commentary built into it. And that was so popular, especially amongst theological students. And of course, they were the ones that went out and teach their congregations. And it sold millions. It is still selling today. It's still one of the best-selling Bibles in the world. This was the most significant thing that happened in Christianity, in Protestant Christianity, on the evangelical side of things. This is what led to Zionism, and you can see so many movements concerning that in Christianity. I'm talking about Christian Zionism. Extremely important person. So I would say 1844 is significant regarding this. Yes, something else that's very important, because of the Great Disappointment. The Great Disappointment took people away, the way that we were thinking about prophecy, the historic method of reading prophecy. People were so disappointed because they said, it doesn't work. And then all of a sudden, people started switching to his theology, which was built upon futurism, on Ribera's futurism of 1585. That is what happened here. The main shift of 1844 moved people towards his theology. Then, of course, we have William Miller, that first of all said that Jesus Christ would come in 1843 and then realized it's supposed to be 1844. And he held on to this date for a long time, so I'm not going to go into all this. You guys know the teaching of what we believe about the Great Disappointment. But then we get to this person, Ellen G. White, which began her first prophecy when? December 1844, when she received a vision from God. And the rest for us is history, but also the people that saw that this whole disappointment had a specific meaning, where they saw that it was not the second coming of Christ. That's, of course, what we all teach today. And that's what Edson, what they all saw about the visions on the sanctuary, but I'm not going to go into that now. And these are all the things that happened. And I believe that these things are not coincidental. Those three beliefs that I've shown you there, they are the guys that had significance regarding this date. These three faiths saw that they believed that this is a significant date. The Baha'i, the Adventist, and the Seventh-day Adventist. I'm making a distinction. Now, as the Seventh-day Adventists believe that this is a significant date, but today there's about 25,000 left of them. So that was definitely a movement that failed. The Baha'i, well, they don't cling to the word as the only true inspiration because they believe in other faiths as well. And the only other one that teaches this date to be an important date is, of course, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And it's up to any person to decide which one has any real value to it. The Seventh-day Advent movement, which I would rather call it, as the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because that is a more widely term. Now look at all these events that had a negative impact on Christianity. Evolution. Did that affect Christianity at all? It did. It almost destroyed it. Karl Marx, Mazzini and Nietzsche, and spiritualism, Mormons, they took a lot of believers. Baha'i and New Age type religions. And then, of course, the translation, the new modern translations that confuses people concerning the whole idea of the law not being effective anymore. Yeah, I did not mention that. Yes, the Jehovah's Witnesses build their faith on this as well, of course. And then dispensationalism as well, and later as Christian Zionism. Dispensationalism, that the root is that we no longer need to keep the law because that is part of the Mosaic dispensation. We're not part of that dispensation. With the cross, that dispensation ended, and now we no longer need the Ten Commandments or anything of the Old Testament in fact. In a certain sense, they will always deny this, but in a certain sense, they take the Old Testament and they just delete it and just read the New Testament. Then positive, the telegram, electronic communication, paper from wood, rubber, matches, YMCA, William Miller and the Adventists, and E.G. White and the Seventh-day Adventists. I would say that this date is not a date of coincidence. I'm not going to go through everything now again. Who is telling the truth? I believe that the Seventh-day Advent movement, they are telling the truth. And what we've heard from the prophecies of Ellen White concerning this date, we need to take serious. And you find so many people within the Adventist church that would just come and say that this date was wrong. The Advent movement was good and everything, but they had this date wrong. And I don't understand how anybody can call themselves an Adventist and ignore this extremely important date. Let us just have a prayer together. Thank you, Lord, for what you've done for us, for what you've given us, and that you've revealed this to us. We ask, Lord, that you'll help us to make the world aware of what is going on. And we've given us so many other prophecies for our time now that people must hear this message. And we ask, Lord, that you'll touch their hearts and help them to see. Take away the blindness that's over their eyes, the blindness that covers their whole being, that they just cannot see the truth. We ask this in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.